Welcome back, True Seeker. Last night, the news broke of the flood in Virginia and Maryland and other parts of the East Coast. Most of the headlines talking about Virginia and Maryland. I often point out how those states are a lot like Virgin Mary. Again, they surround the capital, the District of Columbia, which was once owned by a wealthy Catholic Francis Pope, who gifted the land for the federal government. Of course, that Roman symbolism's all over. The Jesuits who served the Catholic Church set up camp in the DC area. So again, Virginia, Maryland, Virgin Mary. This flooding that reportedly took the life of a 12-year-old boy named Jordan. Of course, Jordan's a river in the Bible. But this flooding began a span of 248 days from the Virgin Mary's birthday as it's celebrated by the Catholic Church on September 8th. 248 days matters because the United States of America is 248 years old. And remember, the nation's first Catholic president, Kennedy, he gave that speech September 25th, 1961, to the United Nations about the future of weather control. Also, the first act of weather warfare was admitted to on August 15th, 1952, on the Jesuit order's birthday. This flooding that took over the headlines last night, that's going into today because it's getting worse. Yesterday was 52 days before the nation's upcoming birthday. Of course, in Gematria, flood equals 52, like Earth, like Enlil. Again, Enlil's the Babylonian god of storms and flooding. But yeah, let's go over this piece by piece. And I also want to parallel it to history. And again, what the first act of weather warfare was blamed on and how that fits in with this being a top story throughout the news today on May 14th, which is also Israel's birthday. Israel was credited in a major Catholic ritual. So we'll put it all together here. Okay. Again, CNN has this as a top story this morning, the flooding in Virginia and Maryland. Today is the 134th day of the year. The first act of weather warfare was blamed on something called RAF rainmakers, and RAF stands for Royal Air Force. This happened in the UK. But as I wrote a book about in 2017 covering this, RAF rainmakers has the gematria of 134, like flooding. They were responsible for the Lynmouth flood that killed 30-some people. Again, here we are on the 134th day of the year, and this is a top story. Weather warfare has been admitted to now for this year. It'll turn 73 years old, the better part of the last century. From the anniversary of Virginia becoming a state, June 25th, to this story breaking last night was exactly 46 weeks on the nose. Flooding equates to 46. It's continued into today, which would obviously be 46 weeks and a day later. But remember, today can be written 14/5 like 145. In Gematria, Catholic equates to 145 and 46. Again, if you're new here, there's 4 base ciphers of the English language. You want to know all 4 ciphers. The first Catholic president was JFK, number 35, killed at age 46, killed on I-35. The second Catholic president was Joe Biden, number 46, elected 46 weeks after the Pope's birthday, inaugurated on the Pope's 35th day of his age, after his son, Beau Biden, died at 46, perfectly coordinated with the Pope, as we've covered so many times, including way before Joe Biden was even called the president. We were saying that's why it was going to be rigged for him. But think about it. Today can be written 14/5 with this 46 connection. The Catholic Old Testament has 145 more chapters than the Protestant Bible. It has 46 books. These numbers that connect with Catholic and the Old Testament is the story of the biblical flood. Again, this is lined up with a calendar that is credited to the Catholic Church and the Jesuit priest Christopher Clavius. So again, these are all the pieces and dots you have to connect when you think about it. First act of weather warfare on the Jesuit order's birthday. Now this. Again, in a country that's 248 years old, Today is 248 days after the Virgin Mary's birthday. Yesterday would have been the 248th day of her respective age. Again, the span of days. And if you need help understanding that, it's like September 8th is the first day of her age. September 9th would be one day after her birthday or the second day of her age, and so on. So, again, September 8th, 2024, the last Virgin Mary's birthday. If you go to May 13th and you count the span of days, it becomes 248. So both days have the 248 connection. Both days this is in the news. Again, yesterday was 52 days before the nation's upcoming birthday. Again, the first act of weather warfare in 52, the Linmouth flood. Flood, Earth, Enlil, all 52 in the base ciphers. Again, if you're new here, the 4 base ciphers, the alphabetic order, the reverse alphabetic order. Remember, in Genesis 8:3, the biblical flood ends after 150 days, and they're saying at this school that got flooded, 150 children were stranded. They had to throw the 150 in there. Again, 150 is a number from the biblical flood. But again, the 4 ciphers, the alphabetic order, A is 1 up to Z is 26. The reverse alphabetic order, Z is 1 back to A is 26. The reverse alphabetic order with numerology applied. Here we are in 2025. It was reported last month there's been a lot more flooding this year than any other year. Covered that story when they released it. And we said, well, 2025, ripe year for flooding. The 12-year-old boy might remind you of Jesus. The story of Jesus goes up to age 12, and then there's a break, and then it comes back at age 30. But they say this 12-year-old boy, Jordan, the name of a river, was washed away in Virginia at 5:30 p.m. Just for the record, Virginia has the 53 connection. Virginia 53. Religion's also 53. Parallels to this religious story. And he was identified as Jordan Sims this morning. Jordan Sims. Jordan has the 62 connection, or actually, I'm tripping. Flooding doesn't have the 62. Jordan, though, 62. Jordan Sims, he has the 148 like Maryland. Or hold on. Sorry, I'm off. Is it Baltimore? Yeah, I'm thinking of the Baltimore bridge collapse story, and if you remember, they had to figure out, based on a 148-year-old law, what was going to happen with the boat that hit the bridge at 1:28 in the morning when Maryland's 1:28, like bridge collapse. And again, that happened 128 days from Francis Scott Key's birthday. All right, Jordan Sims, though, the number that actually really stands out with him is just the 67, because water is 67. Again, Jordan is a river. We're just how flooding is 46, how this flood happened 46 weeks into Virginia's age. It says 4 to 6 inches of rain came down through Tuesday night, exactly 46 weeks into the state's age. But yeah, it's just, I mean, do you think this is Mother Nature, or do you think this is purposeful manipulation of weather in light of the fact that the U.S. admitted to the ability to create floods back in the 60s with Vietnam and Operation Popeye? Again, the Royal Air Force admitted to having the ability to create floods in the 50s. Kurt Vonnegut's brother, Bernard Vonnegut, was one of the General Electric scientists who figured out how to create rainfall. And Kurt Vonnegut, he wrote several books about man getting crazy, tampering with nature through science, and that's what Cat's Cradle is largely about, with Ice 9, the scientific invention that can destroy the world. And just with regards to military dominance, also in the news at this time is Trump's in the Middle East striking a $1.2 trillion military deal with Qatar. And Boeing stock has shot up today because Boeing is a lot of that contract. But, Qatar's 78, Trump's 78 years old over at Qatar, striking one of the biggest foreign military contracts in history. Um, it's mostly drones. Again, this is being touted in the U.S. media as a big win for the Trump administration, but is it really a big win for humanity that all this money and resources is being dedicated to creating the military police surveillance state? Um, Again, and then you have people rolling their eyes at the idea of the military being in control of the weather when in the 90s, the document was put out of the military owning the weather by 2025. I have a post on that. Military document owning weather by 2025. Let me see. Uh, Defense Technical Information Center, weather as a force multiplier, owning the weather in 2025. Funny enough, this document is 53 pages in light of this Virginia story. Let me see. I know I did a post on this a while back. Yeah, this was written about in 96. So from the Air Force, again, it was the Royal Air Force that first admitted to weather warfare. But yeah, here's your actual military talking about with the emerging technology of owning the weather by 2025. In my notes, initially I did say this was a 52-page document. Maybe Google updated it to 53. Yeah, the end of the document from what I have here is 52 pages. Let's see if that's still true. Scroll down to the bottom of this. Yeah, this is a 52-page document. Think about that. 52. Again, flood Earth Enlil 52. The flooding began in Virgin Maryland 52 days before the nation's upcoming birthday. Again, while it's still 248 years old, 248 days from the Virgin Mary's birthday. I've been making this point for a long time about the Jesuits, the Catholic Church, weather control, history. And again, you have people like Professor Dave Explains making videos saying that any control of the weather is mental illness, conspiracy theory crap. You got, what's his name? The guy that always talks about not paying taxes, who went to prison for a while for not paying taxes. I mean, I hear his sentiment, but the reality is if you're the only person not paying taxes, they can throw you in a cage, as he well knows. He's still talking about the same thing. I understand where he's coming from. It's just you're not going to get the American people on board with what's going on and why they shouldn't pay their taxes if they don't have the full scope. I cannot think of the guy's name right now. He did the film Jones Plantation. The reason I'm bringing him up is because back when we had called out why it was going to be a horrible hurricane season, perfectly synced with The Rock, the former Miami Hurricane, and as crazy as that might have sounded, who was 52 at the time and had a 5-2 birthday. And again, the Hurricanes were perfectly synced with The Rock, as we called out at the start of the year, or even before he turned 52. He was making videos around that time saying that, there's no proof that the military or government can influence weather. And then he wants to tell people to not pay taxes. It's like, well, if you'd actually do better research, maybe motivate more people why they shouldn't be paying taxes, because we are contributing to our own demise. The technology that's developed off of our tax dollars is being weaponized against us to have further control over us. Again, as more people are convinced that climate change, they're saying this is climate change, as climate change is this destructive force that's going to ruin us all, as more people fall victim to this, they're going to be paying more taxes. They're going to be giving up more rights and liberties. And again, doesn't seem to be what's really going on. It doesn't seem that it's really climate change. It seems that it really is weather warfare, what's been on the books for 70 some years. I wish I could think of that guy's name right now. I did a video responding to his video last September, and I don't think he ever responded to that. He said he wanted somebody to call him out. I did. He didn't follow up. So, and don't forget the congressman that was on the news last year calling people lunatics for posting videos online about the government having influence on weather. Remember, we actually looked up and saw that he started out in the 26th district of Florida He's a lot older now, but it was literally his 26th birthday where the U.S. Congress banned weather warfare. So it's like, they picked out the guy who started in the 26th district. Oh, shit. Hold on, you guys. 1 minute pause, and then I'll take calls here in a second. It will be that number, but hold on. I have to run and do something. I just realized I forgot to put out the garbage today, and I just heard the garbage truck. Hold on. Okay, my bad. That was almost bad. All right, if you guys do want to call in, it is that 509 number. Let me get the system all the way on. Skeptics of weather warfare, people who want to add more to this story, bring up classic examples that we've exposed. All of those things are fair. And let me see here. All right. All right, 626, you are on.
Peace, Zach. What's going on?
Yeah, what's up?
So, I wanted to talk about this particular thing that's going on right now over in the DMV. So, is this, just for clarification, is this in the Hampton Roads area?
What's that?
Is this in the Hampton Roads area? Is this in like Norfolk, Virginia Beach area that the flood is occurring?
Well, it's clearly on the border of Virginia and Maryland. That's the area most hardest hit. So,
okay. I just wanted to mention because it reminded me about a month ago, let's say in March, it's May right now. So in March, I was in, Norfolk, and I was walking through the Hampton Roads area, which constitutes basically Virginia Beach and Virginia Beach and Norfolk. And their water level is basically just sitting on just a bunch of water. So I was noticing, I was like, dude, like this could flood any minute because that same, last year I went through both Milton and Helene. So I got out of Dodge. I went over to the state of your alma mater right now. I'm currently in Arizona. But yeah, I'm glad I got out of Dodge because, dude, like I did not need to go through another natural disaster. And I gotta say, after having gone through Milton, yeah, that weather warfare type madness is definitely legit. When the power got struck off in Milton around 9 p.m. that night, the sky had like green, blue, and red, and those are not natural colors from a natural disaster. It definitely was some sort of electronic device, specifically, I believe, HARP. So I could see Hampton Roads. I did a record about it earlier last month or in March called VV and BB, and that's on Bandcamp. People could check that out on my channel. And yeah, I predicted this was going to happen just off of a feeling, if you will, just off of being in tune with this planet, if you will, this planet's existence. So I'm not surprised that this is even popping off.
Well, that's the advantage of being in the know, too. It helps you make more informed decisions in life. So I'd say well done.
Word. Respect to you, Zach. Keep up the good work. I know you ain't, I know you don't really get the support that you deserve. Last year, you know what I mean? I'm still out on the streets and everything, and I've been supporting you since I started listening to your stuff back in like maybe 2019, 2020. So just keep it up, man. I'll see about putting in some support if when the time is right, man. Salute.
All right. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Respect.
All right. You have a good day. Yeah, I meant to play the news clip. It's whatever. You can see it right here. That's what they reported everywhere. That there were 150 students. Again, flood and earth have that 83 connection. Genesis 8:3, the water receded steadily from the earth at the end of 150 days. We've talked about this stuff so many times, how they just got to put the numbers in the story that point to the Bible. And with regards to all of this being done Kabbalistically, we did talk about the 46 weeks after Virginia's birthday, but that is also 322 days. Remember in Genesis 3:2:2, they talk about the tree of life and knowing good and evil. The physical model for Kabbalah is the tree of life, and it has a good half and an evil half. What's up, 480?
What's up? This is for people that think that, we don't control the weather and stuff. Like, how many prisons or banks have you ever seen get hit by the seas? You always see schools and like hospitals, stuff where like people could be sad and stuff on the news, but they don't ever hit banks, prisons, or none of that, ever. And in the LA fires, which was crazy, is they're about to, there's fires that were like a quarter mile away from this jail or prison. They didn't evacuate those people, but the people that were 3 miles away from there, they're like, get out of your house now, don't take your pets, don't take nothing, like, and then they're a quarter mile away because they knew it wasn't going to burn. You know what I mean? So they just, but I'm just saying to anyone that thinks, go back and see. There's no prisons ever get hit, no banks ever get hit, no police stations, nothing that's important ever gets hit. It's always like schools and freaking hospitals and stuff like that, to bring people like all sad, to make everyone, but that's all, just stuff like that.
All right. Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
All right. Yep. Bye.
I'd have to look into that, but it's hard for me to imagine that these communities that get hit, that none of the banks in the community got flooded. By the way, it is Israel's 77th birthday today. Israel, Old Testament, this U.S. flooding. Remember, United States does have that Gematria 77. The nation's capital's on the 77th meridian in the Virginia, Maryland area. Looks like Israel's busy striking Gaza for its birthday again. That goes on year after year, as we've talked about so many times. And just remember, the first prime minister of Israel established on this day in history, 14/5, was David Ben-Gurion, 145. Just like Catholic is 145. Again, the Jewish section of Catholic Bible is 145 chapters. The Catholic created United Nations is what voted Israel into existence. So, do we have any other callers out there today about the topic, about weather warfare? Again, it's been something I've been talking about for over a decade. My first book, Letters and Numbers, there's a big chapter on it. We've been covering these very repetitive patterns. Major storm after major storm. And yeah, I feel like this is one of the most blatant ones ever, just in terms of how they pay tribute to the Virgin Mary while the country is 248 years old. Again, this flood coming 248 days from her birthday. Let me see what you guys got in the chat. You guys have anything to add there? Again, if you do want to call in, it is that number on the screen, 509-560-4982. Yeah, Gina says she's in Maryland. It's been raining all day. Yeah. Somebody says, do you think their rule is by divine reason? No, I think it's just greed. I think it's just about world domination. Jordan says he just made 10,000 off Gematria. Must be taking advantage of those rig sports games. Well done, Jordan. We got our friend in Atlanta. What's up, Jay?
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I I don't want to stay on too long. I have to get off. I just wanted to say that one of the callers calling me and saying that banks and police stations don't get wiped out through hurricanes. That's just not true. Like, I get the point that he's trying to make, but these people, they a lot of these things like banks and stuff like that, like they have FDIC insurance, so they don't like when shit like this happens, shit like that happens. I just want people to not use, because they do control the weather. They can control the weather. They've always been interested in controlling the weather, but I just want people to use arguments that aren't debunkable. Like, I don't want people to use self-defeating arguments, because then that's just going to make people not take it seriously. Like, you don't just get up and say things that indicate very poor levels of research, because all it takes is just one Google search to see what police stations in this city was restored. I mean, if a city is hit by a hurricane, or they engineer a hurricane to hit a city, then everything in that city is going to be significantly affected and destroyed. It's not going to be some magical shield over the police station or a fucking courtroom, and then everything in that area is going to get washed away. So we know these people just have no issue doing that.
Yeah, I would agree. Keep your argument sound, because I was just thinking that I was like, I don't know how that'd be possible, and since there's banks everywhere and police stations everywhere, and we've seen cities get wrecked, so how is that even possible? And then quick Google search does show that, here's police stations, here's banks, here's jails, all wrecked by floods. So yeah, again, you got to make sure. I agree, and I was listening to it, but I was thinking, I don't doubt that. Go ahead.
Yeah, like it's irritating. No, I'm just saying it's irritating because like you have way stronger arguments. Like I don't like, you can pull up simulations and projects that they've done, like Project Sirius and Operation Storm Theory, that show that they have interest in controlling the weather, that they are very interested in controlling the weather. Like, you have things to the timing of things to point to. Like, you have very undeniable evidence that at least make people question things. Like, I just don't try to use arguments that aren't as strong when it's not even necessary. Like, it's just like, you need to show things that actually like can't be questioned.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Like, people will be right about stuff, but then they just use poor argumentation for it.
Yeah, I agree.
Make everybody else say the same thing. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
All right, appreciate it, Jay. Thank you.
All
right, have a good one, man. Yeah, you got to make sure your argument's concrete, because, again, I feel like I come with a concrete argument all the time, and people still are trying to poke holes in it. And I don't feel like people are very successful at poking holes, but people are good with their cognitive dissonance and just shrugging it off and say, oh, I bet you could make it line up however you wanted to. It's like, I don't know, pretty long track record here of Jesuit Catholic weather control. First Catholic president talking about it. First act of weather warfare on the Jesuit order's birthday. Again, who else could sync up the language in the calendar but the people who made the system, which were the Jesuits? Again, Catholic Church and Jesuits are responsible for the language as we know it, which was implemented in the same moment in the end of the 16th century as their calendar. I do got to wrap it up here in about 5 minutes. So if you did want to be part of the stream, now is the time. I was thinking we'd have more callers on this topic since we've been beating the drum for a long time. But perhaps not. Perhaps not. We also have a very low viewership on this stream. I don't know if it's because people don't care or because Google made sure less people got notifications. Appreciate the enthusiasm in the stream, Jordan. Thank you. I'll get back to count on it. I told you, Sweet Lady wasn't too happy with the night podcast, so I'm taking a little break. And like I said, I grinded super hard last month, and great results for the community too. Financial support went down quite a bit last month, so Sweet Lady said, "All right, you're spending less time with your family, staying up late at night. You're already exhausted, and you got even less support financially for doing it for the last month. So what's the point?" I said, "Well, you got to give it more than a month." But anyway, to appease Sweet Lady, I said, all right, I'll take a break on the nightly podcast here for a minute. So that's what happened. Got to balance the family life. And again, also just respond to the reality of the situation when you work extra hard and nobody seems to care, or and support goes down, it just, she does have a good point. What is the point? So. All right. Well, we don't seem to have any other callers. Oh, right as I said, there comes a caller. This will probably be the last caller, and then we'll call it a day. What's up, 863?
Hello, you good?
I can hear you.
What's going on, Zach? How you doing today, man?
I'm doing all right. Thank you.
No problem. So I want you to look into the numbers and connections between, if you haven't already covered it, Tory Lanez stabbing recently and Megan Thee Stallion, and his name, his full name, and the biblical connections and scripture connections that tie in with all that. There's a lot of between numbers.
I saw,
and there was
the stabbing happened the same day the trial started, right, for Diddy?
Yes, exactly. Yes, I know it's also with Diddy. Is his hair change also a ritualistic thing as well? It's more of a gray, but
yeah, how they're saying his hair's turned gray in prison. I saw that story that his hair turned gray.
Yeah, right, and they say that supposedly might swing the jury in terms of how they feel about him and whatnot. Just obviously just put out for that. But also, I want to say, keep doing what you're doing. It's funny enough that I came to your channel just naturally, randomly, out of the blue, just because I have a deeper connection with numbers as well. Like just earlier, one of your students who you feel like teaches gematria, but he makes little slip ups. Called me Kinfolk, was really the first person I found gematria. Then eventually, I ended up finding my way onto your videos, and he was speaking about how recently with the Pope died at the age of 88. And then a lot of the connections with 26 with that number and with God, the 26 bones in the human body. The 206 bones in the human body, and how brain also equals 26 in the cipher as well. So does God. And then how both of those reduce down to 8. And I have a tattoo of the number 8 on my arm. I've just always had a connection to 8. Like once I really started to first get my spiritual awakening. So I want to say, keep doing what you're doing. I know the path is tough and whatnot, but stay fast, and eventually the Jesuit order will lose.
Okay, I don't have time to do the Tory Lanez thing right now. The 14 stabbing stood out to me because the word slave is 14, and they're always putting that code when they shame black men and entertainers in the media, the slave code on it. And I heard last he was in critical condition. Hopefully they don't report he's dead, but the word dead does equal 14. When he was sentenced to prison, it was on August 8th, 88. His name, Daystar Peterson, is 88. Just like Daystar alone, there's 88 constellations.
Right. Right in the sky. Yes.
So, yeah, I'll look into it more. I'm sure there's a lot more to it. The whole thing was sequenced.
Do a separate video.
Go ahead.
Definitely do a separate video because and I believe it's Numbers 24:17, and the way they describe his stabbings, mind you, he got stabbed 2 times in the head, 1 time in the face, 4 I believe it was 4 times in the back, and then it was 7 total stabbings overall. That's specifically how they describe it. They didn't be sure to describe it in the article with each number separate by itself.
Okay. Yeah, I'll look into all that. I'll do a decode on it. So
yeah,
I appreciate the
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because I wanted, because definitely I'm able to from your teaching I'm able to see a little bit more here and there, and I'm able to somewhat decode and see things as well. But obviously, being that you're somebody who's been studying this knowledge for 10 years, your expertise is definitely far better than mine. I'm not somebody who's oblivious to that, so I would definitely appreciate you doing a more deep dive decode on that, because Kinfolk did a good video, but he doesn't have the well of knowledge that you have that I more seek.
If you want to go to my website, GematriaEffectNews, and just search Tory Lanez in the search bar, I have a number of stories up to from when this whole thing broke with him supposedly, what was it, shooting Megan Thee Stallion in the foot? That was the how the story began.
Yeah. There's she has her ties to it as well. That's why I ended up just asking you to do a video, because I know there's a lot that you can cover. This particular situation actually I feel like has a good chunk of information in terms of different ties and ritual ties that you can tie back to so many things that are higher up that connect up to the Pope. So
He was arrested 88 days after the shooting incident, just like how he was sentenced to prison on 8/8. There's a lot to it. I will go
exactly.
back and do a post. So appreciate the reminder. Thanks, man. You have a good day.
No problem. I appreciate it. Same to you. I appreciate the Patreon too. I just subscribed recently. I haven't got a chance to really take advantage of it yet, but I definitely will.
Thank you for doing that. Appreciate it, man. Take care.
No.
All right, I'll get one more person in here, and then I gotta go. What's up, 725?
Hello?
Hello.
Hi, I was calling because I wanted to know if you would demystify gematria by explaining what it is that causes the people to carry out these agendas. Because by explaining that, it demystifies that. Because people don't understand, like, are these people meeting in a back alley and getting paid and then carrying out this agenda? Like, what makes them act at the time that they act or carry out whatever agenda it is when they carry it out, according to the math?
Well, like I've always said, they're operating Kabbalistically. Again, there's the belief that God created the world with numbers, letters, and words through Kabbalah. I'm getting a replay back. I appreciate it, 725. Thank you. For some reason, it's playing back through his phone. But again, I've explained this 1,000 times. I've written 2 books about it. They do this because of Kabbalah. Again, and there's an evil half of Kabbalah where you use the knowledge for sorcery and spell casting and having influence over others. I don't know how to explain it beyond that, and I've explained it a million times. I have people call in all the time and ask me to say that, so I assume it's because a lot of people are new here. Again, I have written books on this subject. If you want to understand it better, you can get them from my website in digital form. You can also go to my Patreon and just search ebooks. I've made them free to download as well. I do appreciate people who buy them. It does generate funds for the movement, which is severely underfunded, but anyhow, yeah, I will look more into the Tory Lanez thing. So it's all been by the numbers, up to date. I'm sure the latest episode is also by the numbers. And thank you again to IG who said who donated $2 and said thoughts on Vision 2030. I have no idea what Vision 2030 is. Is it related to Agenda 2030? Saudi Vision 2030, a government program launched by Saudi Arabia which aims to achieve the goal of increased diversification economically, socially, and culturally in line with the vision of Saudi Crown Prince and Prime Minister Mohammed bin Salman. You know what's interesting is Marco, our number one decoder from the Christian community. Again, I'm not real big on my religion, but I like Marco. He's been saying that Mohammed bin Salman is the modern day 666 for some time. So that I'm sure he'll be doing a decode on this. It was first announced April 25th, 2016. Okay. I'll have to look more into that. I hadn't heard of Saudi Vision 2030 before you just said so. Guess it's been out there for a minute. All right, I do have to wrap it up, you guys. Thanks again to everyone who hits the like and the share. And if you have a good comment, please leave one. But always copy your comment before you paste it, because YouTube does tend to delete comments the first time you post it. If you have it copied, you can just paste it again and see if it sticks. You can always leave the comment at my website where it will stay. All right, Truth Seeker. That's it for now. Until next time.